Hi, Rock Living in the Philippines here. How are y'all? We're going to do another one just now, and that is about the purpose of getting married. Why do you get married? Before we go there, I want to remind you that we do need money, and that I presume you're enjoying it, because you must be if you're watching it, you give me likes and stuff. These videos can only continue if people contribute to our funding sites, like Patreon, PayPal, GoFundMe, Buy Coffee, Ko-Fi, all of these. I don't ask for a lot of money from you. You can join my Patreon, it only costs you £2 a month. That's 50 pence a week. What do you get for 50 pence a week? What you will get is at least 2 videos a week. And you will also get Patreon-only content, because you are going to find that my site, my website, is moving to a Patreon paywall, because there's a lot of material on that, and I can't really afford to be handing it out for nothing any longer. Anyway, please, I'll put up the addresses now. Please do something about it. Now, what is the purpose of getting married? Okay, what is it? Is the purpose of getting married to subjugate women? No, that's just ridiculous. What is the purpose of getting married? Well, the purpose of getting married is to start a family. That's the only reason that marriage exists. If you think about it, in early societies, and still in some societies today, like for example the Zhui of the Amazon and the Mosu people of China and many, many others, men don't know who their kids are, because there's no formal bond between the man and the woman. Women have sex with men when they feel like having sex with men. And they can have many partners. Men can have many partners. So nobody knows. Everybody knows who's their mother, but nobody knows who their father is. And this was, for example, amongst the Celtic peoples of Europe, this was normal. Absolutely normal. It was only much later that men began to know which children were their own. And this seems to have happened sometime after we started building cities and became civilized in 2 or 3. Now, I was attracted to this idea by a thread that was ongoing on YouTube. Some of these threads are a little bit weird, but they make entertaining reading, and this was, somebody was saying that, what's the point of getting married? Because in the contemporary society of the West, it's a bad bet for men. It's a really bad bet. They're going to lose a hell of a lot. If there are any problems within the marriage, then, the authorities, the police, the state will always side with the woman. And the man will get stuffed. I mean, there is a term, not a very nice one, called divorce rate, in which basically a woman marries men, and then whenever she can, she divorces them, takes half the property, or more, depending on, a whole bunch of stuff. Which means a lot of men are, why would we get married? Why would we get married? And it's a perfectly legitimate question. Now, I know feminists really get angry about it, and women generally get angry. Where have all the good men gone? Well, the fact is, the good men have grown some sense. They've realized that this is a minefield. This whole thing is an absolute minefield. What is the one thing that would make a man decide to take the risk? To say, okay, fine. Yeah, I will do that. I will hitch my wagon to this particular horse. It's parenthood. The founding of a family. And that is the nuclear family. Now, there's not an awful lot of evidence to suggest that the nuclear family existed at all prior to about 4,000 years ago. And it seems to have occurred first in city-sized settlements, although it also seems to have occurred within herder culture. So we don't really know if the herders invented it and brought it to the cities, or whether the cities invented it and the herders adopted it, or whether it was independently come across. Early city cultures were extremely matriarchal. They were, the early cities were all goddess cities. Herder culture has always been very masculine, very patriarchal. That gives you things like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Christianity much less, but Islam, which are patriarchal religions. You know, Islam, a man can have 4 wives. He can actually have more, but that's your recommended limit. You know, just so you don't tire yourself out every night, you know. So, until all this happened, you know, you've got a little stable of women, just like you got your stable of goats, and you know which billy goat, because you only got one billy goat, you know that the little brats that come out of the lady goats are his, just as you know, because you keep your little harem of women, or your single wife in some cases, isolated from other men, you know that her kids are yours, right? And that's the attraction to marriage. I mean, forget all this Hollywood shite. You know, Hollywood's been telling you lies for the last 100 years, and you swallowed it. You believed this crap. You know, it's nothing to do with romance or these airy-fairy fucking ideas like that. Men want 2 things from a woman, and only 2. They want sex, and they want to be dads. Right? Now, today, it's not exactly difficult to get sex. You know? I mean, if you don't actually need to have a personal partner in the business of having sex, well, frankly, the internet is awash to a level which I never thought even possible with pornography. It's absolutely awash. You know, if you need some sexual relief, it's easy. It's so easy. Do you actually think you need to get married? As the wonderful Alex Harvey said, you know, why would I pay that when I can do the same myself? There's no reason. There's no justification for marriage other than to know who your kids are and thereby establish the nuclear family, right? Which is a man, a woman at his side, and the kids. In other societies, that's not what happens at all. In many societies, the women know what's going on, and they run their culture, and they bring up the kids, and the men haven't a clue. They have not a Scooby. The Mosul would be a good example of which kids are their own. The nuclear family sorts that. It tells men, these kids are yours. Now, okay, you can talk about things like DNA testing and stuff like that today, but these are all very, very recent. I mean, we're talking here about things that evolved thousands of years ago and have been part of our culture ever since. Men get married so that they can become fathers. That's the real reason. They get married so they can get plenty of sex, which they think will be limitless and on demand, which it isn't ever. And knowing who their kids are, and therefore being their fathers. Now, the problem here is that since 1970, thereabouts, feminists have been arguing against motherhood. They have said, many, many feminists have said this, that motherhood is just a chore. It's just a way that men use to bind women, which it's just such utter crap because women run the show. And they have been actively discouraging women from having babies. No, don't have your babies. The women are evolved to have children immediately after the menarche, which is usually between the ages of 12 to 14. Right? That's what you're evolved to do. Start having babies back then. And if you go to traditional societies, that's exactly what they do. Oh yes, they do. John Hawkesworth, who was a chronicler of Captain Cook's voyage to the Pacific, wrote of seeing on Tahiti, he saw a young girl of about 12 performing the rites of Venus with a young man of about 17, and the ladies in the middle of the village, you know, open area with the huts all around, and the women were all sitting in the doors of their huts, clapping and yelling advice to this young girl who was entertaining the young man. And according to Captain Cook himself, who was actually also there, he said they offered her much advice, but she didn't seem to need it. So don't give us all this shit, you know? That's when women were supposed to start having kids. And yet now it's feminists like, don't ever have kids, or if you have kids, wait until you're 30. Wait till you're 35. You're an elderly prim. You're actually too old to start having babies by that stage. You fucked it up completely. So confronted with this sort of situation where men are being told, no, I'm not going to have a baby. No, I don't want children. I mean, why would a man get involved? I mean, is he so fucking desperate for sex? Can you not think of some other way of getting it? I mean, professionals are not that expensive. That he would tie himself to one woman, lose all his independence, lose his freedom to move, lose his freedom to direct his own life by tying it to a woman. Is she really that beautiful? I mean, there's no shortage of beautiful women around, you know. It just isn't any shortage. So I think that feminists they have so much to answer for. One of the things that always strikes me about movements like feminism and other cults, like Islam would be one, which are incredibly repressive and authoritarian, is they actually harm most those they purport to help the most. You know, the worst victims of Islam and its teachings are Muslims. If you look at any stat you care to look at, the majority of Muslims being killed in the world are not being killed by the West, although the West has a terrible, terrible recent history in that regard. They're being killed by other Muslims, right? Who don't happen to disagree with their particular reading of the Muslim scriptures. And in exactly the same way, feminism has done more harm to women than to anybody else. It has really destroyed women's lives. You know, I don't go through a day now, but I stumble across some poor woman saying that, what is this life? I don't want to have to go and work in the council office, you know, as a clerk for, you know, I don't know how much money every week or month. I don't want to do that. I want to stay home and be looked after. And I'll keep the house, you know, no problem. The trouble is I can't. And feminism did that. Feminism did that. In the 1950s, women were absolutely sorted. They really were. You know? I mean, I can remember, because I am really old, in the 1960s, my mother didn't have to work. I mean, she was a partner in my father's business, but, you know, she would go in and do an hour in the morning checking over the accounts, and that was her gone, you know, and she'd be meeting her friends for tea and biscuits or cakes, or off to the Floral Arts Society, or off to some other thing that she was doing with all the other women, by the way, who didn't have to work. You know, and they lived like, they had the life of bloody Riley. And they already had kids, but, you know, that's not a problem because you have a girl to look after the kids. That's all been taken away. That's all been totally destroyed. Women aren't allowed to do that anymore. No, they have to get jobs. They have to get careers. They call it career. It's not career. It's just a bloody job. It's the kind of thing that most men would go, I would do anything to avoid having to do that. And yet women are told, no, that's the ultimate reward. That is what you should be pursuing. You know, a life crunching numbers in the council offices, or the, whatever you call it in America, the state offices, whatever. You know what I mean, the legislature's offices, in the bureaucracy. Of course, women are really good at bureaucracy, but that's a different thing. So feminism has basically told women, don't have babies, go and work instead. And men are going, well, if they're going to go and work, right, and look after themselves, sorry, there's a mosquito in here, look after themselves, and why should I bother? You know, I can pick up some side sex, that's not a problem. It's really not a problem, you know. I don't know, some of these guys I hear on the internet, it's like, what are you on, you know? Sex is easy. You can always get sex. That's easy. Fatherhood, becoming a parent, having your nuclear family around you, oh no, that's not easy. That's difficult. That's worth sacrificing your freedom for by hitching your wagon to a woman's horse. But if the woman ain't going to have kids, then why would you bother? Okay? See you next time.